biblical lesson. The possible UN invasion of Israel. Now here's what's scary. This is actually being discussed right now. When NATO began to bomb Yugoslavia, the foreign minister of Israel, Ariel Sharon, did not rush to jump on the bandwagon and to applaud. And immediately our State Department said, why isn't Israel with us? We're trying to enforce the New World Order. Well, one reason they weren't with NATO and the prime mover in NATO, the United States of America, represented by Bill Clinton, is because the ambassador to Israel from Italy had raised a question. As a matter of fact, he had actually said to Ariel Sharon that if Israel didn't get her problems worked out with the Palestinians, that the world community might have to end up invading Israel. When I read that, I checked my Bible. All nations will come down against Israel. And here, the Italian ambassador to Israel is warning the foreign minister of Israel, Ariel Sharon, you better get your problems worked out with the Palestinians, or else we'll have to do to you what we're doing to Mr. Milosevic right now. Now, Mr. Arafat is nobody's fool. He didn't miss the significance of what's going on either. Arafat made this statement in the Jerusalem Post, June the 13th, just a few days ago now. The international community must stop the occupation of Palestinians just as they intervened on the side of the Albanians in Kosovo. Now, this is being talked openly. This was in the most widely distributed newspaper internationally, put out by the Nation of Israel in English. They're arguing. They're talking about these things. They understand where we're headed. We understand where we're headed. This world's getting ready. Now, I'm not telling you that the UN may invade Israel or that the world community may invade Israel. It's a settled issue. They're going to invade Israel. The only question remaining is when. So Israeli foreign minister, he himself said that Israel could face a similar situation to Yugoslavia. That came to me over the internet, theworldtribune.com, in April of 1999. Now, the Bible tells us that at Armageddon, this invasion is going to happen. And at Armageddon, there will be nuclear weapons used there. The passage is Zechariah chapter 14, verse number 12. The Lord speaking, and this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. Zechariah 14:12. Has anyone ever read accounts of the aftermath of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki of World War II? I have read that people, after they fell under the influence of radiation, that they would be walking along and the eye would fall out. Sometimes their flesh would just drop off the bone. This was written 600 BC, 2,600 years ago. But the God who knows all things and rules the universe knew all about nuclear radiation way back then. Now remember, Zechariah 14 is all devoted to the Battle of Armageddon. And he said, all those that come down against Jerusalem, this is the plague I'll use against them. Their eyes will be consumed in their holes. Their tongues will be consumed in their mouths. Their flesh will fall off the bone. Had a most interesting experience in Israel last month. I had an Israeli who lives in Efrat, which is part of Judea, the West Bank, come to my hotel room. Most of you probably realize we send a special edition of End Time magazine to every home in the West Bank in October, because this is the area of Judea. Jesus Christ prophesied about this area in Matthew 24, verse 15. He said, when you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, verse 16 of Matthew 24, then let those which be in Judea flee. For then shall be great tribulation such as never has been before, nor ever again shall be. Jesus warned the people of Judea that they had to flee. Now, I've been understanding that prophecy for several years now. But I was praying. I said, God, the people who live there, there's 144,000 Jews who live in this area of Judea. It's the area known as the occupied territories. And they don't know what's coming. And when I got on the plane headed for Israel, I think it was back in 96 or 97, all this was boiling in my heart. I said, God, somebody's got to warn them. It was though the Lord spoke to me as I was flying over the Atlantic Ocean headed toward Israel. And said, well, you understand it. You've got a magazine. I want you to do it. And so I made up my mind right then, if God would provide the funds that we would do this. We put an ad in our End Time magazine. God's people from everywhere begin to send contributions. And on October the 20th, of 1998, magazines left the Jerusalem post office to go into every home out there. Well, Jay Greenwald, who visited me in Israel last month, was one of the homes that received that magazine. So he was sitting in my hotel room in Jerusalem. He said, you know, the rabbis are telling us different than you. The rabbis are telling us that we have to get out of Jerusalem because Jerusalem is going to be hit by nuclear weapons. And if we are living south of Jerusalem in Efrat, the wind blows the other way, and therefore we'll be protected. He said, but you're telling us we got to get out of the West Bank, out of Judea, and get in Jerusalem. I said, I'm telling you that because that's what the Bible says. And furthermore, it's not you that have to fear the nuclear weapons. It's all your enemies that have to fear the nuclear weapons, because Zechariah 14:12 says, this is the plague I'll use against all those that come against Jerusalem. It's not you that have to worry about it. It's them. And Jay Greenwald did tell me at the time, well, the people out in the West Bank really liked the magazine that you sent. They're reading it. Things are happening. Hey, let me tell you, the greatest day of the Church of Jesus Christ is just ahead of us. What an exciting time to be alive. Finally, the Bible says in chapter 19, verse 19 of Revelation, that the kings of the earth will actually fight against Jesus Christ himself. Now, before we're finished here, let me make something very clear to you. The United Nations is adamant against Jerusalem being Israel's capital. Do you know that many, many years, Israel made Jerusalem its capital just as soon as the nation of Israel was created? And yet the UN to right now is adamantly opposed, and they have asked all the nations of the world not to put their embassies in Jerusalem, and every nation on the face of this earth has complied except two. The only two are El Salvador and Costa Rica. Even the United States of America has refused to place its embassy in Jerusalem. And Israelis who are born in Jerusalem, if they have a U.S. citizenship, many Israelis have dual citizenship, the U.S. government will not put that they are born in Israel. It will only say they're born in Jerusalem. Because we are refusing to acknowledge Israeli sovereignty. Why? Well, they've got all kinds of political reasons, but let me tell you the real reason. God said, I'm going to put my name there, and Satan said, if that's where you want your name, that's where I want mine. The UN internationalized Jerusalem in 1947, and they're determined not to allow Israel to have control there within the last month. You see, we passed a law, the Congress passed a law saying that the U.S. capital had to be moved by Jerusalem. It passed in 1995 by huge majorities, but they gave Clinton an out. He's able to waive it for 6 months at a time. He just exercised that waiver a few days ago because he says it would disturb the peace process right now. Now, our property is in West Jerusalem, but we're not even willing to move our capital to West Jerusalem because we're really saying Jerusalem is still up for grabs. That issue won't be settled in total until a little battle called Armageddon, when all the nations of the earth are going to come against Jerusalem. But when they come against Jerusalem, the Bible says God's fury is going to rise up in his face. And he's